Yes, sir. What is going on, ladies and gents? Lindy and Zone back in the building for the touchdown, taking the lead for the Eagles. One video at a time and dropping buckets like I'm going to be today for my Dallas Mavs, MFFLs. What is up? Got a special guest in the building today. This is a bit of a different structure of streams that I normally do. But I got to keep my Eagles fam close to me, even though their fandom obviously is different from mine. In the house right now, you very well may know him from the from the obvious logo that he comes in with. One of my main guys from the Discord fam, JordyFighter in the building, the owner of his channel with 3 different podcasts working on Fighter from 3 for his Boston Celtics. He has the Golden Dome podcast for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish of college football. And as for all of us in the Eagles fam, the Philadelphia Eagles in the Common Flock podcast, going over Eagles content and whatnot. But today is a NBA stream. Obviously, we are going to go over a bunch of different changes and outcomes and unfortunate endings to our franchises this year. Jordy, what is going on, man? Good to have you on the channel once more.
Hey, it's good to be here. And I'm glad to talk some basketball. It's been a while.
Yeah, different atmosphere as all of us Eagles fans are in a bit of an impatient atmosphere, I guess, in awaiting just training camp to get started. So we have more content to work on. Who makes it to training camp for that matter. I think we've made all of our cuts. I think we've made all of our necessary cuts up to this point. So, and it's still yet to be seen with training camp and whatnot. But this is an NBA stream, and we are going to get into this. Bobby Philly fan in the building, what up? Just seeing you on the Eagles Uncensored stream for 100 subs. We were hanging out in there. Appreciate you, man. Smashing that like button. You already know. Big Play Slay in the house. What up? What up? There is AK for Eagles Uncensored. What is going on? Double pump it up. Lucas Hallman in the building. Another Sixers fan. What is up, Lucas? It was awesome meeting you in camera person on the live stream we had with BLSG, part of the HPL that does a carpet league for basketball up in PA that I'm trying to get a part of one of these days if I can get my ass up there and actually play. Fly Eagles TV, a New York Knicks fan in the house. What's going on? Lucas excited for USA basketball starting tonight. And that is going to be another topic of discussion that we're going to bring up. Obviously, the new head coach of the Boston Celtics in Ime Udoka. If I pronounced it correctly, you can confirm that with me, Jordy. But he was formerly a part of that decorated coaching staff for the San Antonio Spurs and Greg Popovich. We see Brad Stevens step down from the head coaching position in combination with the retirement of Danny Ainge as the general manager. I'm sure you're happy about that one. But, what do you – now, before we get to Ime Udoka, you've seen how Brad Stevens coached this basketball team for the Celtics over the years and multiple playoff appearances. You guys have had some bloody – rivalries in the playoffs with the Philadelphia 76ers. It was always that star-to-star battle between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and then with the Sixers, it was always, Ben Simmons for the most part, and Joel Embiid. But, you see Brad Stevens step down from the head coaching spot, and, he has been disappointing as of late, and I'm sure that was disappointing and shameful in some spots to see. But what do you like as in terms of Brad Stevens taking this new role and staying in the organization for the Celtics? What is he going to bring from a general manager's perspective, in your opinion?
Well, one thing he definitely brings, and this is something that's been evident through most of his time in Boston, is he's got a drive. He's got a drive to take that next step, take the next leap, be the next big thing. And we saw it with the blockbuster trade of Kemba going to OKC, and he's already getting off quickly with a move, and we're hearing some rumors about more moves. Him moving up and staying in the organization is a good thing, because not only does he have familiarity with most of, if not the full team, he's got familiarity with the staff, some of the front office. So it's just a sense of he knows how it goes. And there was even a quote, I don't have it in front of me right now, but he said he kind of wanted to be like Ainge, where he's going to be somewhat of a tough general manager, but he also wants to be the guy to sit down with the coach for the first loss, have a beer, and kind of just help him through it, because the first loss is always one of the toughest. And I like that he's moving up, and in a way I'm glad he's moving away from the coaching position, but time will tell how he does.
Yeah, I mean, Brad Stevens was he was pretty impressive to to say the least, in the beginning of his coaching tenure for the Celtics, and giving them a different approach to the game of basketball, and working with those two young studs of stars that you got in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, a nice tandem that you have over there, and you put a bunch of veterans around them, and you had Daniel Tice for a little bit, and you had Aaron Baines for a little bit, and Marcus Smart is still there, and those guys are the likes, and trying to incorporate a little bit of Taco Fall, very like a polarizing piece for the Celtics and whatnot, but and he had his his aggressive moments, he had his methodical moments, and so on and so forth, but what, like, is he going to share a lot of the tendencies that Danny Ainge has had over the years for Boston, or do you think his approach is going to be a little more personal to Brad Stevens, as opposed to following in someone else's footsteps?
Well, from a GM to coach standpoint, I think he's going to stay a lot like Danny Ainge. But from a personnel standpoint, I think he's going to roll with his own kind of mindset. Though you can't forget what Ainge has done, and you've got to at some point kind of follow his mentality. But I still think Stevens will kind of have his own mentality when it comes to moving guys, and it's really going to come down to situations, more or less.
Yeah, no doubt, and it kind of reminds me of a similar situation that the Mavericks are working with right now. Obviously, we have a head coaching change. We also have a general manager change with seeing the departure of Rick Carlisle and Donnie Nelson, and the long-term tenure that they have had in the Dallas organization over the years, and Rick Carlisle being here for 13, and Donnie Nelson being here for a little over 20, I think 24 years, and sometimes it's always good to see a little bit of change. You see some innovation and different approaches and so on and so forth, to try and mix it up a bit, in terms of the direction of the franchise moving forward. And then for us, when we bring in Nico Harrison, and he doesn't necessarily have the experience in terms of working with cap numbers and stuff like that. He's going to need a crew in those certain aspects to work under him. But what he does bring to the table for the Mavericks is the fact that he has accumulated great relationship after great relationship with a lot of players in this league over the years, and I think that's going to benefit him best in terms of putting the Mavericks on the map as one of those, top destinations in attracting, free agents or people, that want out of a team that they don't want to play for anymore, and then come over and say like, well, that guy Nico Harrison is as someone, is a GM that you want to play under, and we liked Jason Kidd as a player, and so on and so forth like that, and maybe I want to give it a chance over there. I mean, they got Luka Doncic is over there, and I think that's going to be the bulk of Nico's primary responsibilities in terms of like his resume and like his personable skill set and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll go through a couple of comments here that are relevant to what we're talking about. And Lucas bringing up, Al Horford is back on the Boston Celtics again, and his contract is still terrible. So, what do you think is going to happen? We've seen that Al Horford came back to Boston in that exchange with Kemba Walker heading to OKC, and the Thunder are actually trying to move Kemba again. Doesn't look like that he is in their future plans. You guys bring in Al Horford, who was already on the outs with the Thunder. He wasn't getting minutes. They were just throwing him off to the side. They didn't use him. So, do you see Boston actually, wanting to play Horford again, even though that contract is horrendous, or is it going to be a scenario like OKC is doing with Kemba Walker?
Yeah, and I think it can go both ways, but I think short term Horford could be in their plans, especially with he's been here before. He kind of knows the deal. He knows some of the squad, and there's also this. And yes, he has a horrible contract, but I think there's no way you move Kemba to OKC without taking on Horford's contract. Which, yes, it's bad, but it's not as bad as Kemba's is, and Kemba's on bad knees.
Yeah.
And yes, Horford can get injured, but I'd rather trot out Horford than Kemba right now. But
Yeah.
looking at this center situation, it depends on what they want to do with Tristan Thompson and Grant Williams, because Tristan's an aging vet that you don't necessarily know what he's going to want, and Grant Williams is a guy that you say, well, do we want to keep developing him, or do we want to try to flip him right now for picks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, it's understandable. I mean, then again, Horford is on the latter half of his career, and his usage is going to be limited to this point. I mean, and I don't necessarily think that Kemba is there yet. I think Kemba is only about 31. He did average, I think about like 18, 19 points a game for the Boston Celtics. I mean, they're somewhat respectable numbers in themselves, but when you compare that to the contract that he was given and the expectations that are carried along with him, it seems that he didn't show up for the Celtics as that primary ball handler to bring it up the court to set up opportunities for whether it was Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum or whoever else, like the bigs underneath the basket. I mean, is that safe to say in a sense that, he didn't show up, that Kemba didn't show up when he mattered most, and that's what ultimately led to him getting traded? Or was it a combination of that and him not staying healthy?
Yeah, I think it's a combination, because you got to look, his knees are shredded right now. And for a point guard, if your knees are gone, there's not a lot of hope that you're going to be able to produce constantly and stay on the floor.
Absolutely.
And I don't think there's very much more he can do to go up. I think there's a lot he can do to go down. So I think it was a matter of he can go slightly higher in terms of production, but he can also drop very fast.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't seem, and I don't blame the Thunder either for not keeping Rozier. I'm actually I got sidetracked reading comments as well, but no, it makes sense for the Thunder to not keep Kemba Walker and their future plans. I mean, they're a young developing team. Could they use veterans on their roster? Sure. I don't think to that amount of money whatsoever, because that's just he's just gonna handicap them contractually. So yeah, I don't blame OKC for wanting to keep him either. But Eagles Uncensored showing some love to Jordy here in a minute, but wanted to shout out Mary Ortiz. That's a new name in one of my live streams. Appreciate you coming out and saying hi for for what it's worth. And if you haven't subscribed to either one of us, I would love to have you a part of the End Zone fam. And the same thing goes for JordyFighter for one of his 3 podcasts that he works on. So appreciate you coming on out, Mary. Hi back to you as well. Speaking of, for Jordy, Eagles Uncensored wanted to put out there, he says, yo, please go like and subscribe to JordyFighter. Dude has 3 podcasts on his channel and only 28 subscribers. Need to get him up. He does way too much content for only 28 subscribers. Show him some love, and that's just an awesome example of the support that the Eagles content creator community brings to the table and looking out for everybody. So shout out to AK for his podcast and Eagles Uncensored, and spreading the love to other people who deserve the same. So shout out to you, AK. Awesome comment, man. Lucas Hallman asks, did the Mavs get a new coach yet? Yes, we have. We're going to eventually get there. I know. But yes, we did. Jason Kidd is now officially the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. We're going to get into that very soon. Going to go through the rest of the comments here. Fly Eagles TV says, that's what the Knicks did last year when we hired Leon Rose for relationships with his players like Chris Paul and Devin Booker. And yeah, it's the same mentality. And even though the Knicks couldn't land guys like that, relationships with those kind of top tier players goes a long way in aiding the attraction for anybody else that would want to join said team in that regard. Lucas Hallman also says to Boston, the Celtics should have never traded Terry Rozier. And are you on that train as well, Jordy? I can't imagine, like, for the amount of production that Rozier gave to the Charlotte Hornets, I think you would have rather have had that, a lot more of that, than you did with Kemba Walker.
Yeah, and although one thing I will say is Boston, yes, they could have used him, but this is a team that under Ainge has tried multiple different vet point guards. And we saw it with Isaiah Thomas. We saw it with Kemba. It's been kind of a rotating door of veterans recently. And that is a good thing and a bad thing in a way. Dealing Rozier away, I didn't necessarily like it, but I could see the motivation behind it because he was also going to get paid soon if he was going to bump up, and I don't necessarily know if we wanted to do that at the time, especially with Kemba right there and other guys like Tatum and Brown, and trying to get young guys like Nesmith and Pritchard. So it's either way, it was going to be a win-lose. So,
well, that leads me to think at the same time, like, do you really imagine that Terry Rozier would have had a contract of similar magnitude to a guy like Kemba Walker? Like, would he have been more worth it to give that money to, knowing that he has grown in the system for as many years as he has, and then you try to install Kemba Walker, who has been a seasoned veteran throughout the league, and most notably the New Orleans or Charlotte Hornets, for that matter, before they relocated. And it seemed like a move for Boston when they wanted to bring in Kemba, that it was like one of those win now transactions. And being that it didn't work out the way that it should, it puts people into that kind of regrettable mentality that they should have kept Terry Rozier. So, I mean, when you talk about Terry being close to a contract extension, is that the primary reason why the Celtics included him of all people, or the I guess for a balance of value into getting Kemba to the Celtics, or or do you think? Because I feel Rozier wouldn't have been paid that much money. So I mean, what was it? I guessing it sounds like a combination between not wanting to pay Rozier and then being in win now mode. Would you think that assessment is fair?
Yeah, and looking at what Boston needed at the time, you just needed a point guard, and then you had to hope nobody got injured, Gordon Hayward. But that's one thing that's hurt us is injuries, and I think that was a move for win now, get it done now, and then worry about building a young core later. But the one thing I will say is things did kind of work out because now we have Peyton Pritchard. So I'm not necessarily mad with the move.
No, I guess that makes sense. I mean, I think you're more disappointed to the fact of, I think Boston getting swept when they did, but with all that talent between, you guys unfortunately lost Jaylen Brown at the wrong time, and then you had, it seemed like it was Jason Tatum or bust, and those are not the kind of situations that you want your Celtics to be in, for that matter. So I mean, moving forward, you bring in a guy like Ime Udoka, who already has a strong relationship with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and he's already a part of that coaching staff for the USA team. And Tatum is over there and of the likes, and they're already building a chemistry. They're already building a relationship there, and I can't imagine on what kind of a benefit that's going to bring to the table when you guys come back to Celtics basketball, and what he's going to try and do to raise your team to the next level. And go through a couple more comments here before we get into your new head coaching hire. Nikki Cunningham in the building. What's going on? What's up, Lindy? What's going on? What's going on? Good to see you. Lucas Hallman saying Terry Rozier would be great on the Mavericks. Oh, do not entice me with that idea. Do not entice me. I mean, a guy like Rozier would be like when the Mavericks had Dennis Smith Jr., but Rozier would be a lot more efficient. And I think those are the kind of guys when you're talking about that one or two spot on the team in the backcourt. I mean, I wouldn't have minded holding on to Dennis Smith Jr. And I didn't like the idea of necessarily adding him in that Porzingis trade. And those kind of speedy, those speedsters in the backcourt, that can take you off the dribble. They're hard to defend because of their lateral quickness and getting to the bucket. They're short, high flyers. I think those are the kind of players that Luka would benefit from. Not so much of a slower pace, but yeah, it seems like Terry Rozier would be a perfect fit for Dallas in that backcourt, man. Great idea bringing him up for the Mavs, Lucas. Yeah, that's don't entice me with that idea. I might have to add him in my discussion, but yeah, you brought up an awesome idea. AK saying thank you, respect to you both, great content creators, love what you guys do. Same back at Eagles Uncensored. Has only been on the YouTube waves for a little less than a month to about a month, and he already eclipsed 100 subscribers at that point. Shout out to Uncensored making a name for himself. You already know. Sonic 2.25 in the house. What up? What up? Just seen him in Uncensored's live stream earlier for the giveaway of the Jalen Hurts jersey. If you didn't see that one, I was a part of it. Jordy was as well. You're hanging out with AK Eagles over there. Make sure to go check out Eagles Uncensored on that regard. Gave away a jersey for his 100th subscriber special celebration. Lucas Hallman saying, y'all, Lindy needs one more sub to 160. Let's get him there. Appreciate you, Lucas. You already know. Nikki's saying that she's just mindlessly Minecrafting today. Great description. Great description, no doubt. So, all right, man, we gotta dive into more of your Celtics before, before you have any questions in regarding my Mavs. We're going to keep going with Boston because they're just in such an intriguing offseason, kind of like Dallas, in which we have new regimes to work with as far as the head coaching standpoint goes, and Ime Udoka was the choice for Boston. Like I said, he was formerly a part of that decorated staff for Greg Popovich of the San Antonio Spurs. He was a former player of the Spurs, didn't necessarily get the opportunities that he was looking for. And then he decides, from then on, from his NBA playing career, he gets into coaching. He stays within the Spurs organization. He learns under one of the greatest coaches in the league in that successful run with Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker, and using a bunch of veterans that came and went. Michael Finley was over there, a former Maverick. He was there for some point. I think Coutinho Mobley was over for the Spurs, and it just kept going and going and going. And Rudy Gay was over there. DeMar DeRozan, who's now turning into a free agent, he's entering free agency. He was just over there. So, and then Udoka was also part of that Nets coaching staff under Steve Nash. So when you first heard the news, how did you take this hiring, and what did you feel? In terms of the decision making. This had to have been a part of the thought process of the franchise, not only involving the owner but the new general manager and Brad Stevens. What was your overall take when they decided to go with Udoka as the head coach of the Celtics?
I was kind of excited once I kind of combed through, learn more about him, because he's not really a name that Celtics players or Celtics fans would hear and know. Yeah, I know that guy. He's not really someone who's going to be known by most fans. So I did a little bit of digging and hearing some of the quotes from not only him, but guys like Jason Tatum, Brad Stevens. I kind of got excited because not only is it a fresh start, which I think both of our teams needed, it's also somebody that brings a fire, but he can also do the opposite when he needs to. He's not someone who's just a one personality. And not only that, he brings a different perspective. And he's got connections with a decent amount of Celtics players. Like you said, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. I think he's also got a connection to Marcus Smart. He has a connection to Peyton Pritchard. He's known him since he was a kid, which that says a lot, and I can't wait to see what he does with him.
Sounds like a Brian Johnson, Jalen Hurts connection.
Yeah. And he's also had some good things said about him from people like Greg Popovich and the Spurs org. And honestly, I'm just excited to see what he can do.
I don't blame you, man, and neither does Greg Popovich. I wanted to bring this up to, I guess go along with the Celtics theme here, and this article comes from Mass Live for Massachusetts, I believe, and they took a couple of quotations from Greg Popovich after, and then this was after one of the first USA basketball team's practices, and they talked to Greg Popovich on the hiring of Udoka for the Boston Celtics. Quote, he said, "I couldn't be more thrilled. The guy is a stalwart. People overemphasize X's and O's in the league. All the coaches know their X's and O's. It's basketball. It's not analytical geometry or something like that. That stuff's not tough. But to understand how to get the most out of people, to develop relationships with players, to make people accountable, to make them want to play for you are really the keys." He's got all that. Eagles fans, where have we heard that before? I think we're hearing a lot of the same things from a guy like, Nick Sirianni. I mean, you draw, you draw comparisons and you connect the dots. It sounds, for Celtics fans and Eagles fans, I mean, it sounds very comparable and it sounds pretty promising. I mean, you would think. Um, he also goes on to say, quote, he's really a gifted communicator. With him, less is more. He's not a talker, he's a communicator. More than anything, he's genuine. You know exactly what you're getting. I'm sure that's what Brad Stevens felt when he interviewed him for the first time. And you get into these quotations, and you just hear, and it's like when you get something from the horse's mouth, and in this terms of Udoka investing as much of his time as he did for the Spurs organization and learning from one of the best coaches to ever do it. Those are the kinds of uplifting and confident and courageous things that you want to hear, not only from a fan's perspective, but from a player's perspective that's playing for this basketball team right now. It would seem that that's the kind of coach that you would want, that is very personable, and he's not going to be strictly about the X's and O's at all the time. The basketball. It's not that Bill Belichick approach, and it gives you guys a different outlook, or different approach in the positivity that Udoka is going to bring to the table. And I think you would have to totally agree on that assessment, Jordy.
Yeah, and not only that, Brad Stevens himself said he had an authenticity, and he had experience, and he had an ability to be tough and yet very warm. And I think that's a change of pace, kind of how from Brad Stevens was, where he wasn't the toughest coach, but he wasn't the complete opposite either. He was kind of a middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, he wants to win. He's coming here, and he wants to bring that 18th banner, like he said. And somebody pointed this out, and I didn't even realize it till somebody said it. He's the 18th coach, and he's going for the 18th banner, and that would only be right for him to bring home that banner.
Quite the coincidence. Quite the coincidence, no doubt. And Ime has also he also had some input himself. Quote, he goes on to say, obviously my time in San Antonio was special. I've been cut more as a player than I had guarantees, and my guarantees were in San Antonio as a player. And then spending 7 years there with Coach Pop kind of laid the foundation of who I want to be as a basketball coach. Well, I think you can't complain when you hear those kinds of quotations. Like, he's not going to necessarily bring the Spurs system or foundation to you, but he's going to add his own special touches to it. And I think a lot of those similarities have to do with the Eagles as well. When you bring in Sirianni, one of the partners to Frank Reich, he's going to bring some of his own mixes from the Colts, and then you bring in Shane Steichen from the Chargers, and then you bring in Jonathan Gannon, who's going to give his touches, defensively, and add his sort of gimmicks from the Vikings. And then Shane's coming in from, most notably, the Chargers last year, working with Justin Herbert, and then Tracy Rocker, and so on and so forth. Those are the kinds of quotes, and those are the kinds of qualities that you just want in bringing some positivity back to a franchise who underachieved when they necessarily shouldn't have. And it sounds to me that he is the kind of coach to want to turn the tides and have guys like Tatum and Jaylen Brown back in playoff contention.
Yeah, and not only that, with what he brings to the table. That positivity can go hand in hand with dedication and drive. And he was quoted as saying, quote, "Why wait? Go out and take it," as a message to Tatum and Brown. And he even said it's something he used to kind of say to Kawhi too. And look at Kawhi; he's a very driven player, and he's done very well over the past couple seasons because of that drive. And I think what these players do need is someone with a drive behind them. I'm not saying Stevens didn't bring that, but I think Ime is going to bring even more of that, and that's shown by a lot of his quotes. He's got an energy to him that I don't think Brad Stevens had.
Yeah, of course. And when you're trying to replace a coach, you always want to try and be like you always want to try and take that next step. You always want to be better in that, when you climb, like when you take that next step, you want to be higher, than you were at your previous destination, at your previous point. So let's see, go through other comments here. Looks like Eagles Uncensored is up to 99 subs again. Lucas subbing to him. Shout out to y'all. Nikki asking when does Eagles Uncensored go live? I think his next stream is at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. AK can help me on that if he's still in the chat. I'm pretty sure that it's at 4 o'clock. So you can go check out his channel for that. More Eagles content coming your way. I think it is for the East Meets West podcast. Him and Philly Foothills are going to be adding another installment to their freshly added podcast together. So go check them out and whatnot. Nikki also saying, I used my husband's account to get him back to 100. Yeah, there you go. AK looks like AK is back up to 100 subs. Nightings, what is going on? Saying hi everyone. He says he's trying to get the Philly Sports Podcast to 100 subscribers. He's Robert I think is currently at 75, so he is on that push as well to 100 subs. And go check him out. And there is the confirmation from Lucas and the big 100 added back to the Eagles Uncensored podcast just in time before they go live for the Eats Meets West. Man, it's still embedded in the back of my mind when I hit 100 subs, and I did a 3-hour celebratory live stream on my channel and everything, and stuff like that. And the host of the Philly Sports Podcast, we know him, his first name being Robert. So you can find him over at his channel called the Philly Sports Podcast. He does a mix of content for Philadelphia sports teams. He's big in conversation. For the Philadelphia Phillies as of late. He does the Eagles. He does the Sixers. He does a little bit of the Flyers. But at the moment so far, he's put out a lot of content involving the Phillies. So you can go check him out over there. All right. My Dallas Mavs. Here we go. We decided to go with Jason Kidd as our head coach moving forward. I personally would have liked, in a sense, if we gave Jamal Mosley a try, who was the former defensive coordinator as an assistant coach under Rick Carlisle before Carlisle, not booted himself out, but stepping down. So with us leaving, with Rick Carlisle leaving and heading to the Indiana Pacers, and then you have Jamal Mosley, who is the front runner to land the head coaching position for the Orlando Magic. It looks to me that Jason Kidd's got a lot of homework to do. And as part of as part of his homework so far, the only thing that we got to work with, for the Mavs is that we are in advanced talks and conversations with adding assistant coach Sean Sweeney of the Detroit Pistons to come to Dallas to help out Jason Kidd once more. Sweeney is he's very experienced with Jason Kidd. He was on both of Kidd's coaching staffs when Jason was the head coach for the Milwaukee Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets at some point. It is also said that Sean Sweeney was heavily involved in the development of Giannis Antetokounmpo, of the Milwaukee Bucks, and he was one of those top guys that got Giannis to where he was today. Next to Jason Kidd, and overseeing the development of Giannis over the years, and he is a very personable, approachable assistant coach. That's one thing that I got from Sean Sweeney. And it is important to have that familiarity in the organization when you're a first-time head coach, and you want to surround yourself with people that that you're comfortable with, that you are confident and that are going to get the job done. And we're seeing a lot of those similarities with the Eagles, and Sirianni bringing in guys that he's very familiar with, and who is the Kevin Patullo, very familiar with him, the passing game coordinator for us, and he brings in Jamal Singleton, and and a lot of guys that we just talked about, Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon. Well, Jason Kidd is going to want to do. He's going to want to go the same direction for the Dallas Mavericks, because he arguably. I'm not going to sit here and say that I would take Luka over Giannis, but there's a very similar atmosphere here in which Jason Kidd's arguably working with a top 5 player in the league, and Luka, heading into his 4th season, already has 2 All-NBA first teams under his belt, 2 All-Star game appearances. He was Rookie of the Year in 2019. And there hasn't necessarily been negativity to read for the most part in bringing in Jason Kidd, other than that, his record based, like his performance based on his previous records from other teams season to season, isn't necessarily successful. The furthest he has got in his career was to the second round with that Brooklyn Nets team that had that big 3, including Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, on the latter half of their career, for what it's worth. And that's the furthest that Jason Kidd was able to achieve. But he's got some work. He's got some work to do. Nico Harrison's got some work to do. Mark Cuban's got some work to do, and so I feel that it was a fantastic idea to add Dirk Nowitzki as a special advisor to work side by side with Cuban and acquiring the necessary players to build that championship caliber team that Luka so desperately deserves, because he's a player that doesn't want to lose. And you see that in the passion that he puts on the court. That Clippers game tore me apart. It absolutely tore me apart. That Clippers series in the first round, you get to face the same team 2 years in a row, from the bubble to this year, and it's that same team. And all this talk about the Clippers tanked to play the Mavs, and how pissed off it made the players and the fan base. And Luka really took it out on them Clippers. I loved every minute of it until I seen guys like Porzingis and Trey Burke and Cauley Stein and and it was an absolute disaster. So I mean, I have to imagine, Jordy, that with you recognizing at some points in watching the Celtics with with Jason Kidd over in the Eastern Conference coaching those Bucks teams and coaching that next team, you're somewhat familiar with him. Um, I mean, from an outsider's perspective and knowing other coaching candidates that were available, in your opinion, do you think that this was, the move or one of the top moves that the Mavericks could have made in selecting their newest head coach?
Yeah, and I think it was one of the top moves. I don't necessarily think it was the best because you still had guys like Chauncey Billups out there who, right after, signed with the Trailblazers. But Jason Kidd coming in is still a good move because not only is he's got familiarity with some of the franchise in general, and yes, he may not have the best record, but look at some of the players he's worked with. And not only that, uh, Carlisle pushed for him to be a coach here. And from the outside looking in, part of it is, well, if he's pushing for it and he's got knowledge of the franchise and some of the people in it, why not? And I think that's what makes it one of the better hires they could have made. And I don't necessarily think that what's been his downfall with some of the other teams will be like it is in Dallas. I think what's really going to come down to is, can they build a team around Luka more than what about Kidd's coaching? Because I think Kidd's coaching may be in a good spot here depending on what they decide to do, if they decide to go with a young core or just surround Luka with vets.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough decision going forward, and you would think that it's most appropriate that a guy in Rick Carlisle who's already left the organization advocates for and advertises for the Mavs to hire Jason Kidd, and yeah, it makes sense in a lot of different facets. I mean, you know, this is a guy who he has coached on that 2011 championship team, and what a veteran and Jason Kidd has meant to that Maverick squad and getting that title. Even though he was on the latter half of his career and whatnot, but he just, yeah, the value there does make sense. And Carlisle thinks at the same time that he's the kind of coach that's going to get the most out of Luka Doncic. Well, not just from not just from a playmaking standpoint, because you got Jason Kidd. You got Jason Kidd coaching an already fantastic playmaker in Luka Doncic, who over the course of his career so far has averaged 26, 26, 8, and 9. But yeah, it seems like it does make a lot of sense. And he's trying to bring back another familiar face in Sean Sweeney, and that collaboration between the two of them, and hopefully aiding in the defensive issues that the Mavs have had over the years. A lot of Mavs fans feel that Jamal Mosley was one of those top considerations, but the only cause for pause that I had in that case was, under Jamal Mosley, personnel aside, from a player standpoint, their defense has always either been like average or bottom 10. And for you to be top heavy in a sense from an offensive standpoint, yeah, it's all fine and dandy. I mean, the Mavericks recorded the best offensive rating in NBA history last year, but it didn't get them very far because they weren't good on defense. So you necessarily don't want to be top heavy in in those kinds of situations where you get deep into the fourth quarter and you don't have the necessary defense to maintain a lead, and then you end up losing basketball games. And the Mavericks have been notorious for losing games within one possession. I mean, that's I think losing games in that matter, when you know that you can shut down the other team and you know that you have the defensive talent to do so, and they just blow game after game that are within one possession. Sometimes, in my opinion, that's worse than actually getting blown out, because you know that you should have won that game, but you let it slip away. So that's the only, like, I guess that's the only precaution that I had in wanting Jamal Mosley as a head coach, because I don't think I don't think that he had the correct defensive approach for the personnel that the Mavericks have had over the years. And that's basically what led to two straight first round exits for the Mavericks, outside of getting rid of players that we shouldn't have. Seth Curry, sorry, I had a cough, and bringing Josh Richardson into a situation where he ends up getting benched at the end of the season, and it's very it's very disappointing. It's very disappointing. All I want for my team is a championship run. That's all I want, because I know that Luka Doncic has that kind of heart. He has that kind of drive. He has that Jordan-esque mentality to him. Like, he just doesn't care. He wants to go out there and win basketball games. The man signed to Jordan Brand. So I mean, I think who else isn't there a Boston Celtic that's signed to Jordan Brand? I thought Jason Tatum was in that mix too. Is that right, or is he with somebody else?
I'm actually not sure. I'm pretty sure somebody is signed with them, but not
I thought
100% if it's Tatum.
that's gonna bother me now. Who?
I'm checking this right now.
Um,
Tatum is with the Jordan Brand.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I thought. So I mean, you would know with those 50-point games that Tatum was putting up against the Brooklyn Nets, when you guys were not even favored in any of those games whatsoever. I mean, it's just that mentality, and Luka Doncic certainly has that mentality. So man, but I mean, I guess we'll get into free agency here now. Um, what do you feel? What do you feel is the best direction? Moving forward for the Celtics, with the necessary players that you want to build around your top two guys, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. What is going to fit the bill, and help aiding them to win more basketball games? And what do you feel? And what do you feel is going? Who do you feel is going to fit a Ime Udoka system for Boston going forward?
Yeah, what I think this team is going to need is they're going to need a point guard. They need a vet point guard. That's what we've had as our starter for a long time, is somebody that's got experience taking the ball up the court. And looking at the Celtics expiring contracts, I'm pretty sure, I'm pulling it up now, but Fournier is leaving, so you don't really have anybody there that's a vet at the guard spot. Yeah, Fournier's gone after this season unless he's extended, so you've got no veteran guard. So they're going to have to pursue something like that, and it also depends if they want to roll with Aaron Nesmith, the second-year player, or if they want to get somebody at small forward for now, for like a short term. And the same can be said for center, except You've already got the vets there in Al Hortford and Tristan Thompson. Though Tristan Thompson, he only has 1 year left, which that slightly worries me unless you're going to keep around Al Hortford for the near future, because he's contracted through the 22-23 season. But in terms of free agency, looking at guards, somebody I really think we need to pursue, and I'm going to try to go with a cheaper option because that's what this team's going to need to look for, is maybe a Dennis Schroeder or Dragic, depending on if they pick up his option or not. Which I would gladly take someone like a Dragic from Miami. And honestly, I would be fine with either. Or somebody around that level that's going to give you some production. Because that's all they need, is somebody who brings consistency. You don't necessarily need someone who's going to go in, night out, and drop 30 points. And as for center, there's really no long-term options in free agency right now. So I don't know where they go with that unless they want to grab a center in the first round, though you have Taco Fall you're developing.
Yep. Yeah, man. So I got an idea to move this forward because Sports Talk with Let's Go Birds is in the building. What up? What up? Says I'm almost at 160 subs. Yeah, man, it's climbing closer to 200. I guess a goal for now for me, I'm gonna try and hit 200 before the regular season starts or before training camp. I don't know yet. Maybe I'll make it before training camp, but we'll see. So Jordy actually had a he has a video on his channel regarding a trade scenario with the Sixers. So Let's Go Birds actually puts up in the comments, he says the Sixers could have used Kemba Walker. Okay. Well, I don't know if you necessarily agree to that, Jordy, watching all of Kemba Walker last year and what he did or didn't do, injuries he went through. But I guess you can touch upon that first, and then I guess you can share with Sixers fans the trade scenario that you have heard between the Sixers and Celtics.
Yeah, that's something that I don't think the Sixers would want to take on his contract. That's the reason I think he wasn't moved the day after the season ended, because they would have had to fish around and see if they had any takers on that contract with a deal they liked. And the best they got was Al Hortford and Moses Brown. But it comes down to what would they want for him and what would they give. If you're just giving Kemba for a depth piece here and there, yeah, I can see that. But I don't necessarily think there's anybody that Boston is going to necessarily want that the Sixers are going to be ready to give away. And cutting from that quick to the trade proposal, now, this is someone put this in Discord, in the PSN Discord, and I don't know what what article it's from. I'm glad I don't, because that wouldn't end well. But it was Boston receives Ben Simmons for Marcus Smart, Aaron Nesmith, Grant Williams, Carson Edwards, a 2023, 25, and 27 first. And I looked at this, and I had to double take. And then I put my phone down and had to look again. It's not what I was expecting. Because when I heard proposal, I was like, oh, it's going to be It'll be Kemba or it'll be Simmons for a depth piece or Tristan Thompson or something like that. No, this is way worse. Oh, this gives me a slight headache. You're not.
Oh man. Let's Go Birds does not like it already, saying that dude was smoking and and put up the emoji twice, going both ways.
I can agree
Oh
with
my
that.
goodness. Wow. So it seems to me that Sixers fans would not have liked that transaction at all, even though you got rid of Ben Simmons. Um, I mean, it was what, 3 first-round picks and Marcus Smart and a couple other players for Ben Simmons.
Yeah, and I can see the reason to move Grant Williams. He's a young center, though there's a lot of guys in front of him. But Nesmith just got drafted last year. He could be an answer at small forward. And Carson Edwards is like another Grant Williams, where he's just a guy who's low on the depth chart, and he's not giving you very much production. I'd be fine with dealing them as long as you're not dealing 3 first-round picks, too. No, the first-round picks are immediately what I picked out and said, yeah, no, those aren't leaving.
Yeah, I mean, 3 first-rounders for Ben Simmons. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that would be a pipe dream to get that kind of value out of Ben Simmons, from Sixers fans. And we actually have somebody agreeing to it partially in Lucas Hallman in the comments saying, if we can't get Damian Lillard or De'Aaron Fox, he would do the trade. Oh, yeah. So I guess it's a you do you scenario. It doesn't bother me much being a Mavs fan out here in the out in the west of fandom, but I kind of I can't imagine that, maybe from that standpoint, it doesn't necessarily matter where Sixers fans would want Ben Simmons to go, but I don't know that it would really be a good idea to send him to one of your hated rivals over the years, and then you pair him up in a trio, in a big three. Well, as laughable as that sounds, but Boston is going to want to think of that as a big three between Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. But the other question would be, is that would those 3 work together if this trade wasn't hypothetical, and it's a lot more than what Sixers fans would think they can get out of Ben Simmons. I don't know. Philly girl in the building as well. What up? What up? What up? Just dropping by. Yeah, good to see you as well. One of the bigger supporters in the game for a lot of different Eagles content creators, and shout out to you, Philly girl. Birdman saying that Dan Orlovsky is still taking dumps on Jalen Hurts. What else is new? He doesn't want his son Carson Wentz getting all the flack, even though he was critical. It is what it is. Lucas Hallman saying the Celtics would fail miserably with Ben Simmons, in my opinion. Do you where is your agreement level with that take there, Jordy?
Probably 50-50. It depends. With him going to a new city, part of that is Philly media is ruthless. And I think that change would be good and would probably do him some good towards his development. And it's a new regime. There's shifting parts. There's a lot of youth there. If they could develop him right, Boston wouldn't fail. And right now we're kind of starting point guardless, so it's not going to make much of a difference. Although I wouldn't go necessarily to the point to call it a big 3. It could be like that. But I'd rather get a small forward and build a big 3 like you kind of had with Hayward, Tatum, and Brown, and then you had Marcus Smart as a piece behind him that also put up some production along with role players.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't imagine that, if if the Celtics insert Ben Simmons, that he would be the primary ball handler. I just, with the film that he's put on tape, especially last year, I don't think the Celtics would be in a position to do that. I think they would want to. I think they would want to make Jason Tatum the focal point of that offense. You know what I'm saying? But again, it's like, it seems at Simmons' stature that that he can be a flexible player. So would Boston put him at like would they put him at the 3, or like a stretch 4 or whatever, for what it's worth? I mean, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that Ben would be a point guard for the Celtics. I mean, you would have to try and experiment him at a different position, being that he didn't necessarily execute or set up the offense for what it's worth, especially seeing it in the playoffs against the Hawks. I mean, he would just come up the court, wait for Seth Curry to come off a screen, dump it off to him, and then just go stand in the corner. I mean, that just doesn't make sense, from the standpoint of the Celtics to want to pursue him, at that point guard spot, even though at his size of 6'10", he's got the talent to take people off the dribble, and he can back you down, and he can do this and he can do that. But, it's a shame when you get this kind of player that they mentally limit themselves for no apparent reason. And, it makes it look even worse because Ben Simmons at points has shown and has displayed his talent levels. And most notably, those cases were when Joel Embiid was not on the floor. So you would think that teams see that and be like, well, maybe the spacing isn't good enough for the Sixers to, maybe the spacing isn't good enough where you can have Simmons and Embiid on the court at the same time, like they just don't work well, or what have you, whatever the case may be. I'm not saying that that's true. I mean, analytically, from other organizations or franchises, they could very well think those things, because it's not like Ben is pulling these performances out of his what, and this talent was just sprinkled on him by pixie dust. But no, I mean, that that in itself didn't make him the first pick in the draft when the Sixers got him. So somebody is going to have to get that out of him. And sometimes those are the worst case scenarios when it is a mental limitation. Those aren't the kinds of players that you give rookie max contracts to. You want somebody that's going to give you at a 100% confident level in themselves, game in and game out, do everything that they possibly can to help the team win the basketball game. Like, the Sixers paid this guy like over $130 million or something to just play one side of the court. I mean, the dude for his career is only averaging 16 points a game. When you're a two-time, when he's like a 2 or 3-time or like 2-3-time All-Star, and he's got all defensive selections and, defensive player of the year or something, for what it's worth. When you have all these accolades built up and you only play one side of the court, that doesn't add up. That's not the kind of player. That's not necessarily the kind of player that you want as the alpha leading your basketball team. And and that's why everyone is so fixated on Embiid, because he is that proper anchor for the Sixers. And it's just a shame that, Simmons has gotten to this point, 5 years in. So, I mean, Lucas saying, if you have Ben on your team as your point guard, you will never win a championship. And, that's probably fair to say at this point. Lucas also has a question for Jordy, and he confirms the contract. We paid Simmons 5 years, $175 million. Oof. that's worse than Porzingis' contract. So I guess I can't complain in that aspect. Which I'm still an advocate for wanting to keep Porzingis and hoping that he works. But that's a story for another day, I guess. We're already an hour into the stream, Jordy. We've gotten a lot of good basketball talk in so far. There's still 5 people in the chat. If it, I'm already up to 12 likes on this stream, so shout out to my partner Jordy and joining me in this awesome NBA content stream. For a Boston Celtics fan, Dallas Mavericks fan, just talking some NBA offseason and the direction of our franchises with their new head coaches and the coaching staff that they're trying to build, and helping our players that we have paid succeed. And and I can only hope moving forward that it's almost guaranteed that Luka actually signs his rookie max, which I think he's going to. But man, we're kicking some ass so far, Jordy. So shout out to everybody hanging out with us, and shout out to good conversation in general. So thought I'd put that out there. Lucas actually has a question for Jordy, and he goes, do you like Tatum playing in the Olympics in case of injuries? That's always scary. So, and it's kind of a 2-part question, because Luka is also playing in the Olympics as well for Slovenia. And I know I was in a position at first that I was afraid of, Luka getting hurt as well, because he does have some ankle issues, from last year in the playoffs, and his ankle still bothered him a little bit this year at times, and then he had that cervical strain in his neck playing against the Clippers this year. So there's always the fear of injury that's there. But I guess from a Celtics standpoint, being that this question was for Jordy here and getting his opinion, what is your take with Jason Tatum playing in the Olympics? And do you feel that this was a good or bad idea for your franchise player moving forward?
Yeah, I think it all depends on how you perceive it. It's good in a way that he gets to connect with other top players and some of those coaches, and Ime's on that staff, and kind of gets to connect. He does have a slight connection with Kevin Durant. We saw that at the end of the series when they took a photo together and put it on social media. I think it's good to see where he's at against other good players from around the world. And not only that, it gives him a chance to shine along with a stacked USA team. And yes, he could get injured. Yes, there's always that in the back of – it should be in the back of Celtics players' minds or Celtics fans' minds. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be something to worry about unless it's something that's been nagging him for a while. And I don't really think he's had something like that has been nagging him that may act up.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're in similar boats right now with both of our top tier players. But what Luka is doing for that Slovenian team is it's almost unheard of. I mean, this is the first time that his country has qualified for that next step in the Olympic Games of basketball in the country's history of participating in the Olympics. Luka was one of the primary reasons for that. I mean, in the closeout qualifying game, he records a triple-double in 31 minutes, I think, or either 31 or 33 minutes. Luka goes like 31, 11, and 13. The kid's unbelievable. The kid's unbelievable. But Luka's saying the USA is going to win it. U.S. is going to win it, and it's probably most likely. We'll see. I mean, depending on how far Slovenia gets, I'm going to love to watch. If Slovenia gets to face the U.S., I'm going to love to see what Luka does against them, no doubt. He destroys anybody. He destroys anybody he plays against in the league anyway. He gets his points off of anybody, like whoever he wants. You seen him do it to Kawhi Leonard and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and company. And for what it's worth, he's had his decent games against Ben Simmons, but in both of those games, he didn't have Porzingis. So for what it's worth, but yeah, man. I don't know. I mean, I guess I can finish it off for my Mavericks free agency, since we already covered most of Boston. Who brought up the Rozier idea? I think that was Lucas. So I mean, Lucas Hallman brought up the idea of the Mavs, trying to go after Terry Rozier. That would I didn't think of that. Personally. That's going to be, that would be an awesome idea. I don't know if the Mavs are going to be all that aggressive in trade scenarios. Personally, I think they're going to have to approach free agency a little stricter than they're going to with trade transactions. They're strapped right now because of the Porzingis situation. Are they going to re-sign Tim Hardaway Jr.? Who is it? JJ Redick is off the books now. Thank God, not robbing us of $17 million. Who else is off the books? Boban is off the books. Nicola Melli is off the books. So we're going to go into this season with a lot of roster space. Guys like Mike Conley would be a good fit in that backcourt with Luka. He can get some of his own buckets off the ball. I already made a video on DeMar DeRozan. I would love to have him in Dallas. Perfect fit with Luka. He's not the three-point shooter that they necessarily need, but when you talk about a guy that can create his own shot, he can work. He can work with the ball in his hands. He's good off the ball. He's a decent defender. He's not going to shoot the three, but anything mid-range, just give it to DeRozan and he'll knock it down. He's played some good games against Dallas already. He's hit a game winner against us last year. I think he'd definitely be worth a contract. As much as I would entertain the idea of Kawhi Leonard, I don't know about that one because, again, I'm bringing another injury-prone player to the organization when we're already dealing with one that's 5 years younger, and he's built like a freak, 7'3", 225. If Porzingis is healthy. If Porzingis is fully healthy, then I don't think we need to worry about, bolstering the front court. But, that's been the biggest thing with Porzingis as of late is, it's not entirely a means of him being limited systematically, which is true. I don't know if I personally don't think Carlisle did a good enough job consistently involving Porzingis. There was not enough movement. There was only like two different things that he did with KP. It was either a pick and pop or a pick and roll, and that's about it. Or he'd stand in the corner along the baseline for maybe a 3-point opportunity if Luka drives to the basket. The spacing, like the spacing was good, but because he was physically limited. Because he was physically limited due to his injuries, it really just didn't work out very well. But at the same time, you can't imagine that because a player is not on the court enough to develop the proper chemistry that you need between two guys. And Luka has already talked about before that he feels Porzingis is a great player, and it was in his exit interview that Luka has said that Porzingis needs to be used more on the offense, and I completely agree with Luka in that regard, because Luka to me is a guy that's going to know how to utilize everybody the correct way. He's shown that the last couple of years, and this is a player that has been double teamed the most in the NBA last year. 44% of Luka Doncic of his possessions on offense, 44% of those he's been double teamed. The most double team player in the league still averaged almost 10 assists. He almost averaged a triple double last year in the regular season. So, that just goes to show of his brilliance on the court, his IQ, and all of those things that make him the player that he is. So, I mean, from a statistical standpoint, Porzingis has had his most efficient year across the board. All of his averages have gone up between points, rebounds, and assists. His field goal percentage, his three-point percentage, all of those have went up, but it wasn't over a consistent basis because he didn't show those sorts of things in the playoffs. And, the spacing wasn't the greatest, and Carlisle has had Boban and Porzingis on the floor at the same time starting, and it just didn't make sense because it was there was times where it was too defensive centric, and they're trying to go with a big approach down low, and offensively it just didn't work. There was too much lane clogging, and so I don't know. I haven't completely given up on Porzingis yet. I wish I could find out how he would be if he was 100% healthy. And the problem that I'm working with here is I don't know if he's ever going to reach that. And I think that's what the Dallas organization needs to find out. If Porzingis can be that guy. I don't think you can figure that out in just 2 years. So I'm an advocate of giving Porzingis one more year and seeing if he can at least mimic or top what he did last season. Play more than 43 games. Be there in those situations where Luka needs him the most. Stuff like that, but a lot of it is to be determined, and that's the worst part, especially with the contract that Porzingis was given from New York. That's just the worst part to me with what the Mavericks have to deal with, and figuring out if he's just going to be another roadblock moving forward. But man, there's a lot of moves that the Mavs can make in free agency, but it's still a little early right now. Both of our coaching staffs have to be developed first, and then only then will I think the teams will start to make moves in acquiring players, because it is going to be about what the coaches want, and how they assess the rosters currently, and trying to build a team around either Luka Doncic, or for the Celtics it'd be Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But we're about to close up here, getting close to the hour-and-a-half mark on this stream. Jordy, I think we covered a lot of great topics today, really getting in depth on our views and opinions on our head coaching hires or front office changes, who we feel are going to be the right pieces to build around our franchise players moving forward. The Mavs and Celtics are in similar spots, surprisingly, as the Mavs are with the 76ers. I've already done a stream where me and Tone DeShields II have covered that between the Mavs and Sixers. And this is still up in the air. Stuff still has to get scheduled, but I may have something coming up with another Sixers content creator next week, going over similar things between the Mavs and Sixers. I may have another one coming up. I will let you guys know as soon as the information's concrete. And then I do have an Eagles stream coming up, possibly Monday. So I'm giving you guys some pretty dope content coming up. So be sure to stick around my channel. But again, Jordy, I wanted to thank you once more for another great discussion. Between two fanatics of our favorite sports teams and doing what we love to do. So one more time, to help out your channel, get you more subscribers, because the support's definitely there. Let people know where they can find you and all three of your podcasts that you contribute to.
So you can find me at JordyFighter on YouTube. I have all three of my podcasts. The Golden Dome for my Fighting Irish, Fighter from 3 for the Boston Celtics, and the Common Flock for the Philadelphia Eagles. Go check my channel out. Go check those out. I do have a special project to turn into. I should be revealing those tomorrow, hopefully in a stream, if not a video. And then those will be live. So go check that out. Thank you for having me on, Lindy. It's been great. I love having talks with you. It's just friendship from that Discord. And this is such a tight-knit community.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. Everybody that has tuned in, or gets to the conclusion of this stream post recorded, before you close it out, just do me a favor, and the same support that you give to me, the contributions that you give, and and coming into my streams and hanging out with me, go show the same love to Jordy, man. I mean, 3 different podcasts on his channel, and he's only got about 28 subscribers. I mean, that's a little bit unjust. It's a little bit unfair for the amount of work that he gives to the the platform of YouTube and whatnot. Just wanting to bask in the same success as the rest of us, still going strong with our channels. But be sure to go over, show him some support as well. Let's get him to within, I guess, before the start of training camp, let's try and get him to 50 subscribers. I think that'd be a fair number. That's a good I think that'd be a good milestone, a good starting point in your journey to get to 100, like some of us here. So guys, be sure to do that for him. It would definitely mean a lot. And we're gonna get out of here. Is that it has officially struck 4 p.m. on this Saturday. Great topic idea. We've been discussing this for a couple of weeks now, and I wanted to get it on the channel, and I'm glad we finally did. A minute and a half, I think, or a minute and a half, an hour and a half, I think, was a good amount of time for the discussion that we brought to the table. Appreciate everybody that has tuned in today. Go enjoy the rest of your weekend. This has been Lindy End Zone, once again, dropping buckets for my Dallas Mavericks and scoring touchdowns. I'm in for the touchdown for the Eagles, taking the lead for them one video at a time. This has been your guy Lindy, as I have been. JordyFighter, once again, appreciate you being on the show. And fly Eagles fly, bleed green for the Boston Celtics fans. Help you out there. That is their Twitter hashtag, unfortunately. matching the Eagles a little bit. Eagles, we say we like to bleed green, but the Celtics took that hashtag because we're Fly Eagles Fly on Twitter. So for the Celtics, bleed green. Fly Eagles Fly for the Birds. Mavs, MFFLs. Catch y'all next time. Take care and see you. That was my blooper for the day. That was my blooper. I hit the leave studio button. Instead of the end broadcast. That is hilarious. That's hilarious. I'm going to keep that up. we all have bloopers every now and then. We all have bloopers. We all have bloopers. But appreciate y'all. This is an actual goodbye correctly, instead of what I tried to do the first time. So that was a little premature, but take care, everybody, and I'll see you next time.